Hello, this is the full walkthrough of one of my sewing patterns, shrug Dinant, with full length sleeves. The link to the pattern is in the description, but I think also without the pattern this video can give lots of valuable information. So enjoy! I'm Marjolein Turin, designer of Somnia Romantica, and with this project, Somnia Sewing Guild, I make patterns and tutorials available for home sewing. I made a separate video with all you need to know about Somnia Romantica, Somnia Sewing Guild, the patterns and how to use them. Let's start. Obviously I use threads. I also have a sewing machine and a serger. You can of course also sew by only machine or by hand. Next to this I use the following things: tailor's chalk. This is a refillable tailor's chalk pen, a fine scissor and a fabric scissor, measuring tape. This one has inches on one side and centimeters on the other side. Also both starting at the same place, so it's basically a converter. Pins, weights for keeping the fabrics or patterns in place, a stitch ripper, you will always need this, a very fine needle, and yes, it was not curved when I bought it, and when sewing with the machines I recommend a noise cancelling headphone. It saves your ears, and of course if you listen something, do it on a low volume. Fabric recommendations. For the shrug you can use almost every fabric under the sun. Stiffer fabrics will give more volume, like jacquard or linen, but also tulle, which is a very thin fabric but stiff, like in this video. And the more supple and soft fabrics will give a more draped effect, like this stretch chiffon and this fine lace. I will do a special soon about the fabrics that I use, and as soon as it's finished I will put the link up here. For the cuff you can use again the same fabric, but I also love to use some sort of lace or lace trim, and sometimes multiple layers. Here you can see some examples. For the neckline of this shrug I like to give it a bit of volume. Sometimes I have a more demure version, as far as you can say that for my fashion, but most times I use heavily pleated lace in 2 layers, sometimes 3. Also gravity will have way more influence on the softer laces than on the stiffer laces, as you can see in this comparison. The softer lace can give a nice collar-like effect. Drawing and cutting the pattern. I'm making the bodice out of a rose jacquard. I'm laying it with the good side in, placing the back of the bodice on the fold, so I won't get a mid-back seam. And this can be anywhere on the fabric where you see it fit. I trace the lines with chalk. I have a tailor's chalk pen for this. It's refillable. I cut it out with seam allowance. Of course you can pin the fabric to make it stay put, way wiser. I always advise to pin, and I'm never good at following that advice. Here I mark the midline, be sure to do it really on the mid, and then I fold the fabric and put it away. This is bridal tulle. It's so wide that I can fold it twice to cut my both sleeves in one go. I place the mid seam on the shoulder and I place my happy vintage iron weights on it to make it stay put. Trace again, and oopsie, here I noticed that I did not cut away the seam allowance. Normally I do. That's up to your personal preference. But now I have to cut on the line because I kept the seam allowance on the fabric. So take the weights away and then you can see I have 2 happy sleeves and also the contours on the table. This is cute vintage red lace. I want to use it for the cuffs, but it's not wide enough for it. So I'm going to place 2 layers over each other. Here I'm marking the mid, so I can cut out one part, place another layer on top of it in a cute way, and then you can see I have exactly enough for the cuff. I pin it because I will give it a sewing stitch before making the cuffs, and I place a weight on it so I can cut the exact pattern lines. Done. Yeah, these are all pieces, and here are the materials that I'm going to use for decoration. Yay! Onto the serger machine. This gives a great sight of my plans, but a bit less of my work. The angle will change for the rest of the video. I'm putting the shoulder seams through the serger. And after that I place the good parts onto each other and give them a straight stitch with the sewing machine. Next, the cuffs. I sew the laces of the cuffs together over the wavy hem of the lace. First the lace on the outside and then on the lace on the inside. I'm pleating the lower end of the tulle sleeve. I'm giving it a zigzag stitch. I pleat towards the mid and from there the other side around. I'm putting it through the serger and constantly making sure that the pleats do not get into the stitch. Then I place the lace on the sewing machine with the good side facing down, and The same for the tulle, I place it on top with the good side facing down. And I start from the mid of both pattern pieces and then I sew with a zigzag from the mid to the side. After that I zigzag again from the mid to the other side. Then I turn it around and give it a zigzag over the scallop line of the lace while constantly making sure the pleats are nice and flat. The tulle has to be constantly tame. I have this cute lace trim and I decided to add it to the cuff. I leave a bit of the scallop lace peeping out from above and then I sew it on. One time at the upper part and then I turn around and sew the lower part. Here I'm pleating the shoulder part of the puff sleeve onto the armhole of the bodice. I first sew on both sides about 3 inches, 7 to 8 centimeters of the sides onto each other. This is a part that does not get pleated. After this I pleat from the mid to one side, dividing the pleats between space that is left. You can do this the way you want. Of course you can pin it. I do it so that after each pleat there is a bit of space in between them. Once one side is done, I turn it around and do the other side. And then of course the other sleeve. When I checked it and see it's good, I put these seams through the serger. I'm doing all my stitches with a cute thin serger stitch because it gives the nicest effect on these fine fabrics. After this I start with one of the sleeves. I fold it with the good side in and you can then pin it from the cuff all the way to the lower end of the side seam of the bodice. And this you can give one big stitch. Bridal tulle is a bit of a tricky fabric to get really neat with only a sewing machine or by hand. So be sure what you're starting when you do this. There's also of course the option to make it a thing, to give the seam a lace or trim or something to accentuate it and to hide the sewing stitch. Again, you can give this a straight stitch for firmness and then we can do a serger seam all around the hemline of the bodice. Time for pleating on lace. I have this cute dark wine red vintage lace. It's rather stiff, that will give it a nice volume when pleating it on. I'm giving it very dense pleats, starting at one of the sides of the body. The dense pleats are right next to each other. You can see that I use the left hand to make the pleat and the right hand is constantly making sure that the pleat behave because they tend to have a will of their own. When I cut at the mid-back, I change direction to accentuate the mid of the bodice and to make all pleats go downward at the outside. When you pleat it one way at the inside, you will see when you turn it around it goes the other way on the outside. At the side seam I am changing direction again. And yet again at the mid-back I do the same, trying to make the pleats just around the neck as even as possible. And then here goes the last bit. I cut it off with well enough room for the last pleat. This means 3 times the width of the part of the hem you still need to pleat, plus some for finishing. I lay them on top of each other, both good sides out, and give them a very dense zigzag, a very short length. Cut off the excess fabric, be sure to cut the right pieces off. These are tricky things. Now you can make the final pleat. I decided to give the seam around the armhole stitch with the serger seam folded in to the opaque part because the tulle is so sheer that you could otherwise see the serger seam peeping out. It also makes the shoulder seam more firm. It was a bit tricky, I had to redo it once, but the result is nice. I'm also giving the hem of the cuff a little firm stitch with a dense zigzag to make sure it won't fray. There it is. Now for the final part I have this lace. It's the same lace as the white one, but I cut it in half through the wavy line. I do this often. And here's a whole video about finding this lace and separating it. Of course you can also just use a smaller lace or a lace trim, or you can even only pleat one type of lace on the outside of your shrug. But I did this. The nice thing is that when you separate this lace you have mirrored lace and you can make it nice and symmetrical from the mid all around. So with this lace I start in the mid, I leave a bit of room for finishing and I start pleating all around. At the side hem, at the armpit, I change direction. All the time I'm making sure that the lace at the bottom side stays nice in place. It can easily get folded. At the mid-back I cut it with some extra for finishing. I put the other lace, the mirrored lace, on top of it, both good sides in, and I give it a straight stitch. Fold it open, And then I place the piece under the machine again and pleat it so that this mid seam falls exactly on the mid back. If you think why should I put myself through this, then just go along, buy a nice trim or a pre-ruffled lace and spare yourself a lot of misery. Because this is scallop lace, I want to make sure that the pleats left and right are more or less even. So I count the amount of pleats at one side and the amount of pleats at the other side, from the mid-back to the shoulder seam, from the shoulder seam to the armpits and back to the mid-back. To make sure that it ends at the right place, I first did the mid-back and then the last pleats from the mid-back to the side seam. And then I'm actually done. I decided to give the back 2 cute little roses, and here's a link to my video on how to do this. This is the end result. I show it from all angles. You see how the lace around the neckline is nice and firm, giving it volume, almost this ruff-like feel, and how the puff sleeves also stand nice and wide while it's still a pretty fine fabric. I thought it was fun to work with this opaque versus very sheer effect, but there are so many ways to make this rug. So I advise to just try out, experiment around and have fun with this. Yeah, that's it for today. Happy sewing and see you in the next one. Bye bye.